It all began when I was 15 and my younger brother, Caleb, was 10. Our mom had married Victor 2 years earlier. He had 3 kids from his previous marriage, 2 daughters and a son, all younger than us. From the start, Victor made it clear we weren't his priority. That was fine. We didn't need a replacement dad. Our real father passed away when I was 8, and Caleb barely had any memories of him. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs earlier. Victor had been strange about food for months, always remarking on how much we consumed. He'd count the slices of pizza we took or measure out our morning oatmeal. Mom never spoke up when he did this. She just sat there with a forced smile she'd perfected since marrying him. The day everything fell apart started like any other. It was a Thursday in April, and we were walking home from school together as usual. I'd picked Caleb up from his elementary school before heading to the house. I remember it clearly because I had a science exam the next day that I never got to take. As we neared the house, I saw dark smoke rising from the backyard. At first, I thought Victor might be barbecuing, but the smoke was too thick. We ran the last block, and as we reached the driveway, I heard yelling from the back. We dropped our bags and hurried around the side of the house. That's when I saw it. A massive fire was blazing in the yard, but it wasn't just logs burning. It was our belongings, our clothes, books, Caleb's stuffed toys, my soccer gear, all of it. Victor stood there with a fuel can, pouring more gas onto the flames. Mom was recording it all on her phone, giggling like it was some kind of prank video. Victor's kids watched from the back door, pointing and laughing. I couldn't process what I was seeing. Caleb started crying right away. I just stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of it. Victor noticed us first. He smirked, not a friendly grin, but one that oozed satisfaction. He said something about how we ate like adults but contributed nothing, called us leeches, and said they couldn't afford to keep feeding us. Then Mom turned her phone toward us and in a bizarrely cheerful tone announced they were moving to Italy tomorrow, without us. It was like she was revealing a fun vacation plan, not abandoning her children. Caleb was sobbing, asking where we'd live. Mom just shrugged and said it wasn't her concern after today. Victor pointed down the street and told us the foster care office was a few blocks away, suggesting we start walking. The neighbors' kids were in their yard, filming everything on their phones. The humiliation was overwhelming. I watched as Caleb's skateboard melted in the fire after Victor doused it with more fuel, saying his real kids needed the garage space. Something inside me broke, not in anger, but in a cold, calculated way. I grabbed Caleb's hand and told him to memorize every word they said. Then we walked away. I had no idea where we were going, but we couldn't stay. We ended up at a nearby park. Caleb couldn't stop crying, and I let him while I tried to figure out our next move. We had no money, no phone, no spare clothes, nothing. After an hour, I decided to try our Uncle Marcus, our dad's brother, who lived about 30 minutes away by bus. We hadn't seen him much since Dad died. Mom always said he was trouble because he drank too much and couldn't keep a job. We snuck onto a bus since we had no fare money. Caleb was still in shock, barely speaking. We reached Marcus's apartment complex around 7 p.m. I wasn't sure which unit was his, so we checked the names on the buzzers. When we found him, he didn't answer at first. We kept buzzing until his girlfriend, Leela, came down. She didn't recognize us at first. It had been that long. After I explained who we were, she looked uneasy but let us upstairs. Marcus was half drunk when we got to his apartment. He was surprised to see us but not thrilled. I had to repeat what happened multiple times before he grasped it. He thought we were exaggerating at first. He called Mom, but she didn't pick up. Then he tried Victor, who answered. I could hear Victor through the phone, claiming we were lying, that we'd run away to avoid chores, and that they were done with us. Then he hung up. Marcus looked at us like we were a problem he didn't know how to solve. He and Leela had a hushed argument in the kitchen while we sat on their couch. It was clear they didn't want us there, but what could they do? Finally, Marcus said we could stay for a few days until he figured something out. They didn't have a spare room, so we slept on the living room floor. Caleb kept waking up crying that night. I'd never felt so powerless. I promised him I'd take care of him, but I had no clue how. We were just kids. The next morning, Marcus drove us back to the house to see if they'd really left. The place was empty. Their cars, their belongings, gone. They'd even changed the locks. Through the windows, we saw the house was half cleared out. They'd taken what they wanted and left the rest. We went to the neighbors, the ones whose kids had filmed the fire. Their mom, Karen, was horrified when we told her what happened. She confirmed they'd left that morning in a taxi, all 5 of them with suitcases. She showed us the video her kids had recorded of the fire. It was real. they'd abandoned us. Karen gave us some of their old clothes and made us breakfast while Marcus talked to her husband. They discussed calling social services. I begged them not to. I was terrified of being separated from Caleb. After much debate, Marcus reluctantly agreed to let us stay with him for now. He made it clear he wasn't ready to be a parent, but he couldn't let his brother's kids go into foster care. That night back at Marcus's, I found Caleb looking at old family photos on his tablet, which he'd left at a friend's house the day before. Thank God for that. There was a picture of us with Mom and Dad before he died. Mom looked so different then, happy, warm. I asked Caleb if he understood why Mom did this. He was only 10, but he said Victor made her choose between us and them, and she chose them. Later, Karen told us Victor had been planning this for months. He'd gotten a job offer in Italy and saw it as a chance to start over. He'd always resented supporting another man's kids. The food comments and constant criticism were all leading up to this. He'd convinced Mom they'd have a better life without us holding them back. That first week at Marcus's was brutal. He had no idea how to care for kids. Leela tried to help, but she wasn't thrilled about the situation either. They argued a lot, usually about money or us. I missed a week of school before Marcus enrolled us in new schools near his apartment. I had to act like everything was fine, but nothing was. At night when Caleb slept, I'd replay the fire, the laughter, the way they discarded us like garbage. I vowed that one day, when they least expected it, we'd make them remember that day. I didn't know how, but I swore they'd pay. 10 years later, we got our chance. Caleb's phone suddenly blew up with over 50 messages from Mom. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. After a decade of silence, she needed something from us. That's when our revenge plan began to form. Living with Uncle Marcus was tough. What was supposed to be a few days stretched into weeks, then months. It became our new reality. His apartment was small, a one-bedroom where he and Leela slept while Caleb and I shared the living room floor. No privacy, no comfort, no sense of home. About 2 months in, Marcus lost his job again. He blamed us, saying the stress of suddenly having 2 kids made him slip up at work. That night, I overheard him and Leela arguing. She said she never agreed to raise someone else's kids and suggested calling social services. I stayed awake all night, terrified they'd separate us. The next morning, I skipped school and went to every store with a "Help Wanted" sign. Most places laughed at a 15-year-old looking for work, but a small grocery store owner agreed to let me stock shelves after school for cash. It wasn't much, but it helped. When I got home, Marcus was drunk on the couch. He looked at me and said we were just like our dad, a burden on everyone. Apparently, Dad had borrowed money from Marcus years ago and never repaid it before he died. That's why Marcus resented us. I started working every day after school and on weekends. I gave most of the money to Marcus for rent and saved a little when I could. Caleb did his homework at the store while I worked. The owner took pity on us and sometimes gave him free snacks. School took a backseat. My grades plummeted from straight A's to barely passing. Teachers called, but Marcus ignored them. I forged his signature on report cards. Nobody noticed we were essentially raising ourselves. Leela grew increasingly frustrated. She and Marcus fought constantly, often about us. 6 months after we moved in, she gave him an ultimatum, us or her. He chose her. I came home from work to find our few belongings by the door. Marcus sat at the table with a bottle, avoiding eye contact. He said Leela was leaving unless we did, and he couldn't afford the place without her. He gave us 3 days to find somewhere else. I was 16, Caleb was 11. I seriously considered buying a tent and living in the park, but then something unexpected happened. Leela came home early the next day while Marcus was out. She sat us down and apologized. She felt awful about the ultimatum but was desperate because Marcus was drinking more and their relationship was crumbling. She didn't really want to kick out 2 kids. Instead, she offered a solution. Her sister, Ivy, had a finished basement she wasn't using. It had a separate entrance and a small bathroom. Ivy agreed to let us stay there if I helped with yard work, so we moved again. Ivy was nice but kept her distance, making it clear this wasn't adoption, just a favor. The basement was chilly and damp, but it was better than Marcus's couch or foster care.